Hi friends, welcome back to Brilliant Blue Reviews. My name is Heather, and in today's video I'm going to be reviewing the new movie Disney's Snow White for you. Okay, nobody wanted to go with me to this, and there's been a lot of controversy about this movie, which you may have seen in various news articles and things, and I'll touch on that very briefly. I wasn't even sure I wanted to go to this movie myself. I probably could have skipped it and it wouldn't have affected my life at all, but I did want to go to the movie and see it so that I could review it for you on this channel so that you can learn more about it. And I'm actually glad I did, because I learned something very important that everybody is getting wrong about this movie. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to tell you who should and shouldn't see this movie. I'm going to tell you the big thing. I'm going to reveal to you the big thing that everybody's getting wrong. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the controversy around the movie, and I'm going to give you 5 things that I liked. I can't say loved, but 5 things that I liked and 5 things that I hated about this movie. All right, first of all, I need to give you a big warning and a plea from other moviegoers like myself. Do not take your small children to this movie. I would actually argue, do not take any small child to any live action Disney movie, please. Okay, especially like these ones that are like the princess, quote unquote, remakes, which I'm getting to that. The Lion King remake, live action remake, Beauty and the Beast, all of those, Mulan, they're not meant for little kids, okay? I would argue that these movies are meant for Gen Xers like me, or millennials, or maybe Gen Z like my kids, who loved the classic peak 90s Disney animated movies, and now Disney's kind of giving them an adult version, if you will. I don't agree with them doing that with most of them. There are a few that I really liked how they turned out. Aladdin was one. I liked the live action Beauty and the Beast. That was another one. I liked the live action Mulan. But some of the ones that I haven't liked, I didn't like the Jungle Book. I didn't like the Lion King. Did not see Lion King 2, the live action, if you can even call it that. It's all CGI. I am definitely not going to go see the live action Lilo and Stitch, especially after I saw the preview of it before this movie that I just saw. No, thank you. The classic animated Lilo and Stitch is the gold standard for me, and I think it's really bad that they're doing this remake. These movies are not really meant for little kids. They're not designed for little children. People should not be bringing their little children to these movies. The little children in the theater with me were bored out of their minds. They had no interest in the movie at all. They would not sit still. People with little kids were taking them in and out multiple times. They're a huge distraction to other moviegoers. The kids have no interest in this. These movies are not designed to hold your small children's attention. I would argue that if you're going to take somebody to these live action Disney movies, they need to be like middle school and up. Okay? Don't bring anybody younger than that. These movies are not for them. Please don't take your little kids. They won't get it. They have no interest in it. It does not hold their attention. They're walking around and, can I have candy? And they're loud and they're distracting to other moviegoers. They're getting nothing out of these movies. Get a babysitter and you and your spouse go to the movie, okay? Just don't bring your little kids. These movies are not for little kids. As far as like just other things related to the rating, I think it's rated PG. It's kind of scary. In fact, all of the Disney live action movies are kind of scary. They're usually dark. Maleficent. Oh, I loved Maleficent, by the way. That was another one that I liked. Maleficent is one that really comes to mind, though, and this one again, too. There's a lot of dark subject matter and imagery, and it's kind of scary. And so you don't want your little kids in there. Beyond that, I would say that they're just too complex. They're too dramatic. They're too long. This was almost 2 full hours long. And they're just not meant for young audiences. So don't take your little kids to this movie or any other live action Disney movie. I mean, I think probably Lilo and Stitch, they're trying to gear toward younger people, but these princess type ones like this, I don't recommend it. But as far as like what other things would be in it that you'd want to know about, there's no sexual content, there's no nudity, there's no profanity. There is some suggestions of violence and murder, honestly, that's kind of pretty blatant. And there's also some kissing. There's no alcohol, really. There's no smoking. But, you know, there isn't anything else objectionable. But that's the first thing I wanted to get out of the way right away is please do not take your young children to this movie. They'll hate it. They have no interest in it. Okay, second thing I want to tell you about is why everybody is wrong about Disney's Snow White. All right, now first, along with this, I'm going to sneak in here the controversy about the movie that you may have heard about. There's a lot of controversy about this movie, mostly, I now realize, incorrectly related to people saying that you shouldn't be remaking the original animated Snow White. It's a classic, okay? Any controversy you've heard related to that is wrong, because I now realize that's not what this movie is. Okay, so hold on. The other stuff you've probably heard about controversy has to do with the casting of Rachel Zegler in the role of Snow White. She's Hispanic Polish. And I'm not, yeah, her heritage is strange. And also Gal Gadot is an interesting casting choice for the Evil Queen. And these two had some issues on the set. Gal Gadot, if you are aware, is Israeli. Okay, so she's Jewish. And she did her, required service in the Israeli military, like every Israeli citizen is required to do. She's very open and vocal about her, her connections to her country and everything. And then Rachel Zegler posted some things ahead of the release of the movie that were pro-Palestinian. So I'm not saying either one of those is right or wrong. You can just see how there could be some conflict there. Okay, and then the other thing is Rachel Zegler made some comments, like in interviews and things, ahead of the release of the movie that didn't, look good. It just wasn't, there was some issues with some of the things that she said. So that's kind of what the deal is with the controversy there. But the main thing that I've been hearing is everybody's ripping it to shreds because they're like, oh, it's completely wrong. It's not following the original Snow White, and this isn't the same and stuff like that. Forget it. That's not what this movie is. Disney Snow White, released in 2025, is not a live-action remake of the original Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs from the 1930s. Okay? It's not. So get that idea out of your head. About 20 or 30 minutes into this film, it hit me clear as day what this movie is, and it was confirmed for me in something right at the beginning of the ending credits, which I always stay through and watch in full for my own benefit, but also for you guys, okay? This movie is not a live-action remake of the original Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. This movie is a movie based on a Disney attraction like Haunted Mansion, Jungle Cruise, Tomorrowland, Pirates of the Caribbean. That's what this movie is, okay? The whole section with the dwarfs, because they're not calling them that for the purposes of this movie because they thought it was offensive. The whole section with them, the whole thing with the jewels and everything, is straight out of Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, the ride at Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World. It's literally, it's the queue and the ride. That's what it is. The music, everything is straight off of that ride. This movie is not a remake of the original Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs movie. This movie is a movie based on a Disney attraction. So if you can reframe that in your head and think of it more like Haunted Mansion or Jungle Cruise or Pirates of the Caribbean, all of which were movies based on existing Disney attractions. They were not based on previous movies. So that's the difference between this Snow White movie and the legitimate live action remakes such as Mulan and Beauty and the Beast. I would argue even that Maleficent is a little bit more like this one, and this is what I mean. What confirmed for me that I was right about this was in the credits, right at the very beginning of the credits, it says that this movie is based on the, and I quote, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs properties and the Grimm fairy tale. So they are saying we are not basing this movie as a remake of the original Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs movie. We are basing this movie on the Snow White and Seven Dwarfs properties. The Snow White and Seven Dwarfs properties, which is a bunch of stuff that Disney owns, includes the original animated movie, but it also would include the characters, the costumes. It would include Snow White's Scary Adventures, the ride at Disneyland in California, and it would include Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, like I said, the ride at Walt Disney World in Florida. Okay, so it includes all of that and probably some more stuff I'm not even thinking of. The Grimm fairy tales, if you're not aware, are really dark and kind of gruesome. A good number of the Disney princess stories and stuff, the fairy tale type movies, are based on Grimm's fairy tales. But if you go back and read the actual Grimm Brothers fairy tales, they usually look very different than what the actual movie ends up being that Disney makes. Disney's going to make it a lot more family friendly and take out a lot of the scary, gruesome stuff. So, but they're saying they went back to the actual source material in the Grimm's fairy tales to get some of their ideas for this movie. So this is kind of a whole new thing, is what they're saying, using these other things as inspiration. That's what it's about. So you cannot go into this movie thinking that this is a straight up live action remake of the original animated Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, because that's not what it is. And that's what everybody's getting wrong in their analysis of it. You should not be frame by frame comparing it to the original animated Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Let me give you the 5 things that I liked and the 5 things that I hated about this movie. All right, I can't say I loved anything about it, but I did like a good number of things about it. First thing that I liked is at the very beginning, I liked the scenery. They did a good job of making it look like medieval Bavaria, which is a region in Germany, southern Germany, which I happened to visit with my kids just a few months ago. Okay, so it looks very much like Bavaria in the beginning part when Snow White's parents are still alive and running the kingdom. The second thing that I liked, and I know they're not calling them dwarfs, those 7 characters, if you will, which yes, they are CGI characters, and I just want to throw in here, there's an actual little person actor in the movie, not playing one of those 7 guys, playing somebody else. So I just thought that was kind of weird that they decided not to use actual little people for those characters, but they have another actual little person actor who's playing a different role in the movie. That was kind of bizarre to me. Okay, I don't know what they were thinking with that. But anyway, I liked that those 7 characters, which they have the names you're familiar with, you know, Doc, Bashful, Sneezy, Sleepy, Dopey, Grumpy. Doc, Bashful, Sneezy, Sleepy, Dopey, Grumpy. Who am I forgetting? Shoot. Anyway, those guys have more personality in this movie, and they have more lines, I guess. You know, I mean, the voices are played by real actors, but they have more to say, and they have more going on with their personalities in this movie than they did in the original animated movie. Another thing that I liked about this movie was the anti-fascist message. I actually think that the movie is very timely. Let's just say it's very reflective of what we're kind of experiencing happening in the United States right now and where things could go if something doesn't happen to stop it. And it was kind of scary, actually. And I like that they, take it beyond that and kind of reclaim the kingdom, if you will, from those dark forces of greed and narcissism that are at work. That is very familiar to those of us who are living in the United States right now. I liked that. I very much liked the character of Jonathan. Okay, there is no prince in this movie, and Rachel Zegler in some interviews, she kind of really made a big deal about the fact that there's no prince that saves Snow White in this movie. However, there is still a love story, but they give her a different character, okay? And it's the character of Jonathan. And they fall in love, actually, in kind of a more realistic way and not quite so creepy as Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. He does also bring her back to life, if you will, after she eats the poison apple, because the antidote to the poison apple is true love's kiss. And he does kiss her, and that's why she wakes back up. So that part is the same. Here's what I liked about the character of Jonathan, though. He totally spot on reminded me of the character of Dr. Pomatter, played by Nathan Fillion in the movie Waitress. Okay, if you haven't seen the movie Waitress starring Nathan Fillion and Kerry Russell, that's an example of one where my daughter and I agree that the movie, which came first, is better than the Broadway show. We've seen both. But he totally reminds me of Nathan Fillion's character, Dr. Pomatter, in that movie, the character of Jonathan in Snow White. There are two songs that I liked. This is kind of going along with that I liked the character of Jonathan. I'm going to come back to the music in the things I hated, but there were two songs that I liked in this movie that I really liked, and both of them were sung by Andrew Burnap, and then one was also sung by Rachel Zegler with him, like a duet. And the songs were Princess Problems and Hand to Hand, I think is what it's called. Those were my two favorite songs in this movie, and really the only ones that I really, really liked. And those two songs totally sounded like something right out of Waitress, the Broadway musical, okay? So I just thought that was kind of funny. They really reminded me of the songs in that musical. It was weird. I actually really liked those songs, and it had the same kind of like humorous quality to it. Both of those songs did. And so the character of Jonathan. So that was kind of funny, and that was something that I liked. The last thing that I liked about this movie was the ending. I really did like the ending. I mean, it actually kind of got me a little bit choked up and a little bit teary. The part where the evil queen, right at the end, they're standing on, it's a bridge, like the drawbridge, but it doesn't look like it actually goes up. They're standing there, and the whole village, the whole town is standing behind Rachel Zegler, behind Snow White, and she's being held in place by these guards. Evil Queen gives this crystal diamond dagger thing to one of the guards and basically orders him to kill Snow White in front of everybody. I didn't know what was going to happen. And what happened was cool and better than I expected, and I really liked it. That was not the very, very end. There was just a little bit after that, but I liked from that point all the way to the end. I really liked. Okay, bonus thing about what I liked, which this is the Disney geek in me that a lot of you are not going to catch this stuff, but maybe after watching this review, you will look for these things and be interested in looking for them like I did. Sorry, it's getting dark. We needed more light. I caught tie-ins in this movie to a bunch of other movies and, like I already mentioned, a Broadway show. Okay, so not only did I see connections to Waitress, I also saw connections to Wish. Now, if you didn't see Wish, and a lot of people didn't, which was really kind of the movie that the Disney animation team made in honor of Disney as a company's 100th anniversary in 2023, I actually really enjoyed Wish. And I talked about Wish in a video on my main channel, Heather Travels, before I started this channel. And you really have to be like my age or older to catch all the references in Wish that make it such a cool movie. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I actually really did. And one of the things that's really cool in Wish is that the king in Wish, at the end of the movie, spoiler, becomes the magic mirror in Snow White. And I liked that the animators made exactly how that looks at the end of Wish is exactly how the magic mirror looks in this Snow White movie. So that was a cool connection. But if you didn't see Wish, you won't get it. I also saw a little connection to Tinkerbell. There is a fairy flying about in one scene with Dopey. And that was kind of neat. But again, you got to be looking for it. And then one other thing that I don't think was necessarily intentional, but what happens to the character of Snow White in this movie after her mom at least dies and her dad remarries the evil queen, who becomes the evil queen, and then her dad is gone, which you'll have to see the movie to see what I mean by that, is really more reminiscent of Cinderella than it is of the original animated Snow White movie. So I thought, boy, this feels awfully Cinderella. Like it really had a Cinderella vibe going on with what was going on with Snow White in that particular part of the movie. And even a lot with the little woodland creatures and stuff. I mean, I know that's in the animated Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs too, but it just really kind of felt more like Cinderella. And then there's one more movie connection that I will come to when I talk about the 5 things that I hated. The number one thing that I hated was the casting. Not all of it, but the 2 main characters. The casting of Rachel Zegler as Snow White and the casting of Gal Gadot as the Evil Queen. Hated it. Hated both of them in those roles. Terrible picks by Disney Casting. I did not like either one of them in these roles. I could maybe see Gal Gadot, but I really, really hated Rachel Zegler as Snow White. I just think that was a terrible choice. She's not that phenomenal of a singer. This was an area that I think really set a lot of people off, and I can see why. In fact, a couple sitting in front of me left during the first musical number where Gal Gadot was actually singing. Okay? She can't really sing. She was kind of going for campy, I think, but it was painful. It was kind of cringy. Okay? So that was the first thing that I really hated, was the casting of those 2 women in these 2 roles. They could have done better. I don't necessarily have anybody specific in mind, but I wouldn't have picked them. The second thing that I really hated about this movie was her stupid dress. Snow White's dress, not at the beginning, but for the latter 2/3, 3/4 of the movie, with the big yellow skirt and the blue top thing. Oh my gosh, that dress was awful. I mean, come on, Disney. You got some of the best costuming department in the world, probably. What the heck were you doing with this dress? This dress looked like you're taking your little girl Disney, or she wants to be Snow White for Halloween. And instead of like the really high quality, nice little girl versions of princess dresses that you can buy, or that you can get at Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, or that you can buy at any of the stores in the park, the official Disney ones, the really nice high quality stuff. This was the knockoff Walmart version of a little girl's Snow White costume. That's what it looks like. It looks cheap. It looks like it's gonna rip. It's horrible. I absolutely hated that dress. It bugged me the whole movie. And her fake little, nothing but like a piece of red sash wrapped around her feet shoes. I don't know what was going on with that either. Her costume was terrible. It was quite distracting to me, honestly, because I was like, this is what? And I actually have to say that about a lot of things, and that's going to bring me to another thing that I hated, which was the sets. In the ending credits, I discovered that the entire thing was filmed at Pinewood Studios in London. It looks like a set. was obviously filmed on completely on sound stages, and it looks fake. It looks very fake. I mean, even the parts where they're supposed to be in the woods looks like a set. And some of it even looks like it's like a model. It's very fakey, and her costume kind of had that same quality to it. And I don't know if that's kind of an intentional thing that they were going for, but I did not like it. Fourth thing that I hated about this movie was the CGI. There's two basic things that are CGI, and I hated them in different ways. The little animals, there's all sorts of little woodland creatures, birds, mice, chipmunks, deer, all sorts of things that are hedgehog, isn't he cute? Okay, the hedgehog rolling around on the Snow White book that literally, I think my daughter has it. Is it here? She might have it at college. She has the exact book. Literally, I think they pulled it off the shelf in one of the Disney gift shops at the park. I'm not kidding. The animals look like they're on a ride. They look like the animatronics that you would see on a ride at Disney. Okay, at a Disney theme park. That's what they look like. They look exactly like that. It's like you're going on the new Tiana's Bayou Adventure, and they're the little animals that are off. That's what it looks like. The dwarfs is a whole nother kind of scary. The CGI dwarfs reminded me so much of Polar Express, and that's the other movie tie-in. They look like something out of Polar Express. They're creepy, and I don't like them. Why did they do that? Not a good choice. And then the final thing that I hated about this movie was the majority of the musical numbers. So with the exception of the two musical numbers that I mentioned earlier that were both sung mainly by Jonathan Burnap, I did not like really any of the songs. I mean, they were fine. I can't remember any of them, honestly, so they were pretty forgettable. They were not great. I mean, it was kind of like, what time is it? that's kind of how I felt, you know, like, can we move on with the story, you know, or whatever. So those are the 5 things I liked and the 5 things I hated. That is my review of Disney's Snow White, released in theaters March 20th, 2025. I'm going to give it 2.5 out of 5. Okay? I'm going to give it 2.5 out of 5. Yeah, I really don't want to go to 3 because there was too much stuff I didn't like to say it was a 3, which 3 is I liked it fine. No, there was some stuff I genuinely didn't like. So I'm going to go with 2.5 out of 5 for Snow White. You might have a different opinion. You might like it more than I did. But I do hope that these things that I told you about in this video will be helpful to you if you are planning to go see it, or you're trying to make a decision if you want to go see it, and that this will be useful to you in making that decision, but will also help you better understand and appreciate the movie. Thank you for taking the time to watch this movie review. If it was interesting or helpful to you, please give me a thumbs up down below, and make sure you're subscribed to my channel so you don't miss any of my upcoming reviews. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you next time.